do the intro.
Hey, this is RJ Bates for Titanium Tuesdays on Propelio TV. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll be right back after these messages. Come on, Bubba, we're live. Titanium Tuesdays. Sorry, man, we're today's round one of this, and so we're live TV sometimes runs a little bit behind, so the little scheduled time snuck up on us. But thank you for joining us today. Today, my guest is my good friend and partner at Titanium Investments of Hawaii, Elijah DeLaGarza.
How we doing?
How you doing, buddy? So today we're going to break down a couple of deals that we've done in Hawaii. Titanium Tuesdays is going to be based around case studies. We're going to really get in the meats and potatoes of the deals that we've done. And we're going to bring in investors from around the country. And we're going to break down how they found the deals, how they financed the deals, how they analyze them, and then how they actually performed on deals and how much profit they made on them. So today, Elijah, before we get started, why don't we discuss how we kind of came together and how we invest in the most remote location on the planet.
Right on. Well, to put a long story short, I went down to Hawaii for some construction-related work, and RJ contacted me after he started doing real estate. We talked for, I don't know, probably about 6 months back and forth before we decided we were actually going to do something, and then we went ahead and took the plunge. He found a property randomly online, which is one of the ones we're going to talk about today, Lilipuna Road. Quite an epic deal, and that piqued my interest, and so I was pretty much like, all right, let's do this. If you can find deals like that, let's do a bunch of those.
Right. So the deal that we're going to talk about today is going to be actually the second flip that we ever did in Hawaii, and the address is 84-618 Kapui Street. So we're going to keep track of these so everybody can kind of see how the deal worked out for us and how the numbers broke down. So one of the cool things, and the reason why I wanted to use this property as an example today, is because we actually took down this property for $0 marketing. We actually found this deal on hubzu.com, which is more typically known as an auction website. But also they have traditional sales on Hubzu, and that is actually how we took down this property. So Elijah, when we took down this property, let's talk about how did we come up with what we were willing to offer on this property. Obviously you start off, we always work backwards from the ARV backwards. So how did we come up with our ARV on this property?
Well, this side of the island is a little bit different. So the ARVs are typically based on your comps, obviously. In this scenario, all of the comps were really, devastated houses that has sold. So it was hard to find a comp that was based on a rehabbed property, and especially the quality of rehab that we intended to do, which we were advised against. Let's not put any serious money to, Formica countertops, etc. So we looked at it from a little bit different of a viewpoint, and we kind of really assumed our ARV based on the reasonable comps in the area, but adding for it being a rehab, so it was kind of a guesstimation rather than a solid, comp that we were able to find.
Right. So the first rehab that we ever did in Hawaii was actually one block north of this property, and we had sold that property for $335,000. Now the difference was this property had an extra bedroom and it also had more square footage. But the realtor that we had hired for the previous flip to sell, he did not want to give us a higher ARV because he felt like the $335,000 property that we sold kind of maxed out the neighborhood.
Right.
Whereas we felt like that was not true because we were coming in with higher quality finishes that this neighborhood had never seen. So the realtor set our ARV at $335,000.
But because we had created our own comp, which was
Right.
at 335 for a smaller property with less square footage and bedrooms, we felt pretty confident at our assumed ARV.
Right. So this is what the realtor set our ARV at. Now, RJ and Elijah set their own ARV based on just our experience in the neighborhood, kind of talking to the neighbors. The great thing about when you're in these neighborhoods and you're doing these flips is you can go around and you could talk to neighbors, you could talk to families, people just walking up and down the streets, and kind of talk to them about what you're doing, and you get a pretty good feel for what people are willing to spend in that neighborhood. So we actually set our ARV at $370,000. Now, Elijah and I have come up with the conclusion that for being a full-blown rehab company, we are going to keep the construction in-house. Elijah, explain to everybody why you feel it's important to not hire general contractors, but hire in your own in-house staff to do your rehabs.
Well, I think that's a topic that you can go either way on. I've heard people make the argument of don't do that. You're not a construction business. You're a real estate investment company. Sub that out and let them do it. From our personal experiences, the inconsistency in performance from the general contractors and subs is a huge issue. Also, the increased cost. Whenever you got a general contractor or a sub, they're going to charge you material, labor, and then they're going to add on their overhead and reasonable profit. So, for us, being in a unique position of being a construction firm in Hawaii already and being in a contractor my whole life, along with you, we know how to run a construction business. So I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a strategy everyone should take, because we don't want to give people bad advice. But for us in particular, especially in Hawaii with the high cost of rehabs, we are able to eliminate that overhead and profit section of the project and use those extra funds to add value to the property, and still come in under the budget another rehabber would come in. So for us, it made total sense monetarily, and we have the organization in place already and the strategies to do that efficiently. So right now, we're up to 6 full-time rehab teams. The only thing that we sub out is going to be our electrical, our plumbing, and specialty trades, like, for instance, our pool refinishing and stuff like that. But everything else, we are doing it in-house. And more importantly than just the cost savings is the time savings, which is also a cost savings, because we're able to control our rehabs a lot more efficiently instead of waiting for a contractor that doesn't answer the phone to show up and get our shit done.
Right.
We're able to say, hey, boss man's here. Where are you at? Why are you not at my job site? So right now we're literally working, 10-hour days, 6 days a week on our projects.
Right. And the other thing about this is that we hire project managers that are essentially GCs, but they work for us. So we have control over them. We control their hours, we control their locations. And so it's not like we just have crews that are unmanaged and Elijah or myself have to manage them. We hire project managers to do this, and that's what's really helped enable us to save the cost on the rehab. So specifically for Kapui Street here, let's talk about how we were able to come up with our rehab budget and how we set that before we took the project down.
Well, that one in particular, we put a lot of love into in the beginning because we had the time, a little bit of an interesting scenario, which hopefully we can talk about that part of the story as well.
Right.
That's an interesting part of the story, but we had a tenant that refused to leave. So what I did is I actually had to assume the square footages of all the rooms and bedrooms. I knew a general layout, but I wasn't able to get in there and actually do a takeoff on it with the measuring tape. So I luckily am really good at that, and I came in pretty much on the button as far as the square footages and all that go. But we made a purchase order sheet and we made a labor sheet, and we essentially broke down every single trade and every single item you would need. If it was flooring, we've got underlayment and quarter round trim on the corners and the flooring itself, the tools to install it, how many man hours would be needed for that laborer to do that work allotted, and we set a paper budget that had everything on it to the $35,000 number, and it included everything, including the kitchen sink.
Right, so we came up with a budget of $35,000. Now, here's the funny story about this. Elijah kind of briefly touched base on it, and it's funny you bring this up because we haven't talked about it in quite a while. But when we actually purchased this property, we took this property down as it was going to be our first rental property in Hawaii. And over the course of time, what we actually found out is that because we bought it tenant occupied, it was actually going to be a better flip for us than it was going to be a rental. And so after we purchased the property and we had to evict those tenants, that's when we changed strategies to actually become a flip for us. So we set a $35,000 rehab budget on this property. So at this point in time, we can now do our reverse math and figure out what our offer price or what we want our offer price to be. So we're going to take, obviously we are going to assume that we can sell this for $370,000, but when we're trying to come up with what our purchase price is going to be, we're going to take the worst case scenario here and we based everything on the $335,000 number. So we took $335,000, we multiplied that by 70%, we subtract the $35,000, and that was what we refer to as our max allowable offer. Now, because this was on Hubzu, and we felt very confident in this after repair value because we had already done a flip in this neighborhood, we were actually able to take this property down for less than 70% of the ARV minus repairs. It was actually listed on Hubzu, and it was really a non-negotiable price of $192,000. So this is what we actually purchased the property for, which roughly comes out to 68% of the ARV minus repairs. So we get this under contract at $192,000, and now our strategy in Titanium Investments is that we always want to take these properties down without using any of our own money. So immediately when we took this down, what was the first thing that we had to do as far as financing this property?
Well, we had to get a hard money loan on this one.
Right. So we had to track down a hard money lender that would loan in Hawaii. Now, mind you, we'd only done one deal at this time, and it's not like here in Dallas-Fort Worth or Phoenix or St. Louis where you can jump on Google and just type in hard money lender and you get, hundreds and hundreds of hard money lenders that will loan you money. In Hawaii, really, when you Google hard money lender, most of the time it's going to give you a lender in Seattle or California or something like that. And so this was a struggle for us to find an actual hard money lender that would be willing to do this. On this one, we actually did find a hard money lender based out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. They required an appraisal. And the funny thing about it was they required an appraisal, but they did not have an appraiser. So we actually, as the borrowers, had to track down an appraiser. And Elijah actually, even though I've been doing this for longer than Elijah, he actually has developed a new system in place for Titanium, which is meeting the appraiser at the property. Why do you think that's important? Because I've never done that before when a hard money lender sends out the appraiser to appraise the after repair value.
Well, there was three main reasons. Number one, I don't like leaving things up to chance. And, you got a bunch of different characters out there. If you get more than one appraisal, you'll probably get more than one number. So there's also obviously some fluctuation in there, you know what I mean, based on what comps they pick, how they see the increase in value that you brought to the property, bringing value on the sell side. Some of them go, well, you can put all the granite in there and that's not worth $10,000. And then the other guy goes, no, those are selling. So meeting them there, I wanted to achieve two things. Number one, obviously, I would like to see the number that I'm looking for end up on that paper. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, was in Hawaii, we call it talking story. But you sit down and you make camaraderie with someone, build a rapport and get them to feel emotionally attached to you somehow, where it's almost like he's going to feel bad if he gives me a bad number. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I was able to talk story with him. We had a really good conversation. And then secondly, these guys don't know how to assume what you're going to do to the property. So if they're just looking at it in the condition it's in, sometimes a property can be really scary looking and people don't have imagination. So he looks at it and he looks at the neighborhood and goes, well, it's all a bunch of crappy looking houses. So what could this possibly be worth? So for me, I was able to take about 45 minutes with them and go room to room and tell them exactly what our game plan was on that property. Here's what we're going to do here. We're going to put this kind of flooring in, even pulling up pictures for him on my phone, showing him the type of flooring and the whole, kit and caboodle, ceiling fan in every room, etc. And he was like, oh man, that's going to be nice, stainless appliances. So essentially I painted a picture for him in his mind of what the product was that we were going to get. And that's how, we've been able to get the numbers we're looking for on our appraisals. So far, they've all come back at the number we wanted. Just,
right.
doing what I just did.
And I think a lot of that also goes back to the fact, like you're saying, painting the story, but also utilizing the fact that we had already rehabbed the property in that neighborhood.
Absolutely. Pointing to that comp that we created was
And he could see
very
the quality of
beneficial.
work
Absolutely.
as well, which is very important because you're building a brand, especially in a smaller area. I know we're specifically talking about Hawaii for this deal, but you can also do this in these larger markets that are over here in Texas and Arizona and other markets that you guys that are watching are in. In these little smaller outlying cities or even parts of Dallas and Fort Worth, you can get in a habit of meeting the same appraiser over and over and over again. And so it's very good to kind of build your brand with those appraisers. Recently, we just refinanced 7 properties at once, and it was with an appraiser that I've known for 4 years. And so immediately when we met him out at the first property, he was like, "Oh, it's you guys. Okay, we're good." Just
Exactly. And on that note, that's another thing that I told them about. I kind of threw the carrot out there for them was, everyone wants job security, right? I mean, I told them straight up, hey, this is not our first and it's not going to be our last with you guys. We're going to continually be doing this. So make boss man happy. You know what I mean? You want my business, do what I want.
Right.
And so, that registered with them very quickly. Like, I'm going to not do something that I'll get in trouble for, but if there's a way that I can push it to the limit, I'm going to do that for them,
Right. And the other thing about this is that now that we've done this, and now that we've taken down more deals over the course of time, we continually call the same appraisers to go get appraisals done for us. So after we get the appraisal done, it came back somewhere in between 335 and 370, and we took down a hard money loan at 2% origination and 10% interest. Not the best of terms. We probably could do better with just taking down private money, but at this point in time, we did not have enough experience or proof of concept in Hawaii to go to our private money lenders. We needed to go out and make this happen. We very much like the bootstrap thing. So we took down a hard money loan on this. On our cash to close, we did go to a local private money lender. We offered them a very nice return and bringing the cash to close and also a couple of months of cash reserves to pay our monthly interest payment and enough money to also get the job started by buying materials. Okay, so the hard money loan covered 90% of the purchase price and 100% of the rehab, and the rest of it was private money. So at this point in time, we actually purchased the property. Kind of walk everybody through what it's like rehabbing a property on an island and what that looks like on a daily basis for you.
Well, luckily, on a daily basis for me nowadays, I don't have to do it anymore because we've leveled up quickly and put our project managers in place.
Right.
At that time, what it looked like was getting up at the butt crack of dawn, making sure that my guys were en route to where they're going, and then sourcing out the materials. Now, on an island, everything is a location, right? I mean, you're literally in the most remote location in the world, so everything's coming on a ship or a plane. A little bit of added cost. You really don't want to try and ship in anything special order. The time frame to get there is 6 to 8 weeks, and the cost for the shipping alone is nuts. Like, for instance, a kitchen full of cabinets, that would be like a quarter of a container. You know what I mean? You're talking about $1,000 plus in shipping, and then 6 to 8 weeks. So that blows our budget and that blows our time frame. We can't make money if we're not flipping these things efficiently. So it was a little bit difficult on those first ones to figure out where to source this stuff. The problems I ran into were I found something that I liked and they were out of stock, or I found something I liked and it was way too expensive. Like, oh my God. So what I started doing is just grab my price point and my budget and then skip everything. Just look at the numbers only and then isolate all the options I had to these are the ones that fall within my budget, and then pick the one I like the best out of that and then determine, is that in stock or not right now? You know what I'm saying? So it was an arduous process, I'm not gonna lie. And then on that job in particular, being out in Makaha, that's the furthest point on the island, so there's a lot of driving involved, but that was definitely a bootstrap job. We forced it.
What's funny about that, guys, is I recently went out to Hawaii, and I always give Elijah a hard time, because I'm back home, and I'm basically kind of just sitting on my hands waiting for the projects to be done once we've taken them down. And I always told him, I'm looking at a map, and I'm like, it's not that far of a drive. I mean, you're on an island, just get on the highway, and you should be there. It's not even that far. I mean, mileage-wise, it's not that far.
Not at all.
But, man, it was well over an hour drive, and that's similar to, like, in Dallas-Fort Worth. If you live in far north Fort Worth like I do, it's like doing a flip in Dallas. and it could be a huge headache just on the time restraint it takes to just go check on the project. So that was one of the hurdles that we had to get over as far as rehabbing this property. Another kind of decision-making process that we had to go through was, now that we had rehabbed one in this neighborhood and we had moved on to the second one, was materials choice. Because there was almost a feeling of, did we over-rehab the first one, and could we get away with doing less rehab on the second one? And why don't you go into kind of the decision-making process that we had there, where we decided, no, we're gonna keep with the standard that we already set in the neighborhood.
Well, I think what influenced that the most for me anyways was that everyone told us, don't buy in Makaha in the beginning. No one wants to drive out there. The houses aren't that nice. And then when they saw what we were doing to it, they were like, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get more money out of it. We'll probably bet you don't even get 290. And then we ended up saying, we think we're going to get 335, and we literally got 335 on the money. So that built some confidence. And then after the first one, before we sold Kapui and we were making this decision, our realtor took us around to all of our competitors. I was able to go look in about 10 houses in one day of other guys that are doing what we do and seeing the finish and what they're doing. And they're trying to take it to that next level, but they go get the beat up refrigerator that got the ding in it, and the cabinets were not installed flush, and the doors were crooked. And I was just looking at the quality of the work, the cheap vinyl planks, and I was like, it's okay, but this is not something that you walk into and go, wow. So our decision making in my mind boiled down to mama. When mom walks in there and she sees the kitchen and she sees the bathroom and she goes, I can see myself living in here. What do they want? It's that, how bad do you want it thing. So putting in the nice cabinets with the soft close and the granite countertops, even though it's not a nicer house, for the square footage that we had, it was almost a no-brainer. I mean, the cost difference is not that much, and you get so much more bang for the buck. So we went ahead and pulled the trigger and did the high-end finish, and again, it worked out for us.
So we now are done with the rehab, and we have a great-looking house. I've been in the neighborhood now, seen it with my own eyes. It is definitely one of the nicer houses in the neighborhood. So now we want to put it on the market. So we were not thrilled with the performance of our first realtor with our first flip. So we actually hired a new realtor on this. Let's go through the listing process and kind of how this went down, because this was a very fast-moving process here. We, at this point in time, had taken on a new realtor that was going to help us with acquisitions, as well as the dispositions of selling properties on the MLS for us. But with this, we wanted to get the project done, and I'm sure everybody who's ever sold a house feels this way. We're at the point now where rehab's almost done, realtor wants to get pictures done, and then she wants to hold an open house on the opening weekend. So kind of walk me through that chaos that you had, that, for lack of a better term, HGTV moments where you were trying to get the property ready for the open house.
Well, we were 2 days away from open house, and countertops were not in. The bathroom fixtures were not in. The house was disgustingly dirty. I literally had my wife come over there and my 5 babies running around in the street playing with the neighborhood kids, which was interesting. But we were in there till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I had a couple of subs that were doing the specialty work, like the granite, I literally told them straight up, you're not leaving this job site till you finish what I need you to finish, period. I don't care what time it is.
And this is important for us because we're trying to also impress our realtor, right?
Absolutely.
Like, we think she's going to be a huge asset on acquiring properties for us, and we're kind of the big dogs going to her saying, oh, well, we're our own construction, we're our own contractor, we're going to get these done on time and things like that.
Yeah,
so
we didn't want to have egg on our face, and so there was a definite urgency there. And like you say, HGTV, they try to push the rush at the finish. Well, that was one of those times for sure. We were hustling. I was there 6 o'clock in the morning, the day of open house, with the landscaping in the backyard, elbows deep in dirt, pulling up weeds and putting in all the landscaping last minute. So we literally had a bathtub malfunction. Right at the end there, we had a little sewer backup, and we had some little floaties happening in the tub, and we couldn't get it to drain. So we fished out the poopies, and I put some bubble bath in there, and we put a candle and some flowers, and we staged it like the tub was ready for you to jump into a hot bath. And luckily it didn't smell, and they couldn't see the brown water because of the bubbles, and so we creatively solved that problem. And literally 15 minutes before people started showing up, we put the final touches on it, and I walked outside looking like, a shit show. I mean, literally dirt in my face.
No,
and
literally
everything.
a shit show.
A shit show.
You
Poop
actually,
on my arms.
You actually dug out shit out of the...
I touched poop.
Yeah.
It was not mine.
So we actually made a shit bathtub into a bubble bath, and we sold the property at the open house.
We sold it at the open house.
That's pretty impressive, Bubba. So okay, now let's go back. When we went to list this property, okay, our agent, the new agent, she wanted to list the property at $335,000, and the reason why is she now agreed that we could probably get $370,000, but in her her theory was we would get $370,000 by listing it for $335,000 because it would create a bidding war. So to Elijah and I, that did not make sense. Why would you want to get into a bidding war if the property is worth $370,000? I've never sold a property to 10 people. I've only sold it to one person. So I want the person who's willing to pay me $370,000 because we created a $370,000 house in a $370,000 neighborhood. So we listed the property for $369,000 and we sold it at the open house with literally a shit bathtub that we then later fixed. But
yes,
we were very creative and problem solvers at the time there. So we sold the property for $369,000. I hope y'all can read this. This is a very hard angle to write at. We're going to fix that.
Well, it's also your handwriting there, Bobo.
Yeah, well. So we sold the property for $369,000. So going back to the beginning, we purchased this property for $192,000. We were pretty on point with a $35,000 rehab. We financed the property with a hard money loan at 2% origination, 10% interest. How long did we own the property?
That one was right at 4 months.
4 months?
Yeah.
So from start to finish, we owned it for 4 months, and we sold it for $369,000 after realtor commissions, holding costs, splitting equity with, with the hard money lender and the private money lender. Our net profit on this deal was right around $75,000. Now, this is a normal flip. There's nothing super impressive about this, but I think the most impressive part about this was, as a company, we were able to take this down with $0 marketing. So there was no marketing costs associated with this. And as much as I talk to real estate investors on a regular basis, that's the thing y'all always want to know about is how do I find deals? Utilize things like hubzoo.com, which can be a free resource for you and find great deals. So I'm getting waved at. There's a couple things that I want to talk about real quick. Propelio is going to be giving away to 3 winners at the end. We're going to give away 3 books. Is it 3 different books, or is it 1 book to 3 winners?
It's 3. It's the one thing. Well, 3 different winners, and they can choose between one of those books.
Okay, so we're giving away either 10X, Influence, or The One Thing. Those are going to be the 3 books. So we're going to have a drawing at the end, like we always do here at Propelio TV, and those are going to be the 3 books we give away. And apparently, we're going to be making Titanium Tuesday T-shirts because we have a super badass logo.
Throw that thing up.
Throw that thing up there, man. That thing is awesome. Travion, I mean, he made this. I don't know if Ryan had anything to do with it, but, man, he made this logo for us, and it is awesome. So it was like a blend between the Titanium Investments logo and the Propelio logo. And we're just super excited about the opportunity to come up here, show like real life examples of what investors are doing from around the country. That's why I wanted to bring Elijah on here, because he's in town from Hawaii. And this is just a great opportunity for us to break down deals and just give you actionable advice on things that we've actually done in our businesses. So right now we're going to step away for a short break. When we come back, we'll be doing some giveaways and also some Q&A, so stick around. All right, guys. I just want y'all to know that was super exciting. That's the first time I've ever thrown anything in a commercial before. Might be the last. Ryan might fire me after today, but That was pretty fun. So we're gonna we're gonna have some Q&A, and we're gonna have some contest winners. But if y'all follow me on Facebook at all, you might have seen me talk about another deal that we have literally been chasing down for 790 days. We've had it under contract. So I want to go ahead and kind of briefly discuss this, because this is unlike any deal that I've ever done, and I very rarely have ever heard anybody talk about a deal like this. We refer to it as Lily Puna. And what's funny about this is this was actually the first deal that I ever found in Hawaii. And so what happened is I had a realtor give me an MLS portal to find properties that were on market. And this was late one night back in, I guess it was early 2016.
Yeah.
And if you've ever searched on a portal before, I like to use the map. And it pulls up the map, and it's of Oahu, which is the island that Elijah lives on. And I started zooming in, and wherever my mouse was and where I zoomed in, it literally took me straight to Lily Puna. And I scroll in, and there it is, listed for $900,000. And every other property surrounding it is $1.5 to $3 million. And I'm like, well, this is crazy. I mean, it must be like a little shack surrounded by mansions, right? Maybe it's a good teardown. And I look up the comps first, and I see those are like 2,000, 3,000 square foot properties. And then I look up our property, and it's 8,000 square feet. And I immediately call Elijah, and I'm like, dude, I think I just found us a gold mine. Like, this is unbelievable.
Grand slam.
So once I called you, you're the one that came up with the crazy idea of what we can do with that. And so explain how you can be a little bit more creative with a property like this in different locations in the world than maybe how most of our listeners think about properties like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've never come across that personally in my travels, renting houses or living places where people share houses so much. There's literally like a pandemic of people cutting their house up into sections and then renting them out for either Airbnb or long-term rentals to help pay for their mortgage because the cost of living is so high. Another part of that fuels it is a lot of older generations bought the houses, then they die off. The younger family takes it over and they don't have the same means, so they have to figure out ways to maintain the lifestyle, right? So it's really common. We talked about this the other day. Hawaii is a very liberal state in their politics, but in real life, it's kind of more of a conservative thing. You can get away with a lot, even though there's a lot of bureaucracy. People are really local, and as long as they know you, they kind of let things slide. So there was a building official who essentially told me, because I was asking him if we could rezone it. There's so much square footage. What are you going to do with 8,000 square feet?
Right.
Like, that's 3 floors with like 12 bathrooms and 15 bedrooms.
Originally,
like,
it's like, hey, let's make this multifamily.
Right.
I mean, beautiful view of Kaneohe Bay.
Amazing.
I mean, why would we not want to make this multifamily, charge out the ass,
Absolutely.
cash flow like none other, right?
That's it, absolutely. Well, that's against the law, unfortunately.
Right.
It can only be a single family home with 1 kitchen in it. And they even, are very strict about how many bedrooms there are, how many bathrooms there are in relation to other rooms in the house. You gotta be careful what you even call them. So I went and learned all this from the building official, and then he straight up told me, look, do what you're supposed to do. Get it approved by the city. Let them come in and inspect. Rough in all your other plumbing and all the stuff that you need done. And once we leave, just come in there and do what you got to do. Put the kitchen in and go for it. So what you essentially have to do is put in a kitchenette or a wet bar where it doesn't have the stove and the refrigerator. It can have a sink and a little microwave and a toaster oven and that kind of thing, but it can't be considered a full kitchen. So we're gonna set it up where we have the other part is you have to have ingress and egress throughout the whole house. So there can't be a dividing wall that prevents you from going from one side to the other. There's gotta be a door with access. So what people do is they just put a deadbolt on it, right? It's kind of like a hotel door between two rooms.
Right.
So we figured out our plan of how to split it up to get 2 units out of the bottom, 2 units out of the middle, and then I was gonna end up living on the top floor and paying my rent, which I'm paying now $4,000 a month towards this property. We would be able to do that through those means that we just talked about. We're gonna go in there, permit it, get it approved, and then come back in after the fact and put in the wet bars.
So the way the timeline here is, we find this deal, I find it on this portal, and I ask the agent to pull me comps, and there's no comps for this, you know. I mean, she's having to go out several miles to find something comparable. And so immediately I'm telling Elijah, like, I don't think this is a good flip. And this is where the idea of creating, it's called an ADU, right? Is that kind of what we're kind of doing an ADU?
Well, we're going to do one legal ADU in the bottom that'll allow us to get a second legal kitchen in it.
Right. So basically at this point in time, we're going to turn this into a cash flowing asset, okay? And we immediately make an offer for $900,000. That's what it's listed for. There's no reason for us to try to beat them up for a lower price because it is a short sale. Now, what we did not know is what the difficulties were going to come from this short sale. So Elijah, kind of go into what was going on with the city, the county, the foreclosure from the original mortgage, the second lien, and what had happened before we came in.
Right. So I think both wondered when we first got it, how has this property been sitting here and no one's nabbed it up? Well, we quickly learned the answer to that question. We got sent the documentation from the realtor, Brad, pretty much stating that the prior owner had pulled a permit and had specific work they were supposed to do. They weren't following that permit plan. And then the story goes, the building inspector came in to inspect, and they were doing some stuff they weren't supposed to. The crew then surrounded him with their tools and wouldn't let him leave the building. He ended up escaping, but he put a stop order on the work and shut him down and assessed fines, which have been accruing sent by daily since then, and that was over 10 years ago. So we're up to, like, right now, $270,000 the last time we heard.
$270,000 in fines.
In fines. So what essentially happened is every person that went and saw that property, I'm sure there's been more than us over the 10 years, got all excited and then found this information out and were like, oh my gosh, well, it blows the deal. Well, that's not how Elijah and RJ think. So you and I had a conversation and we said, let's go down and find out if there's a way to reduce the fees or what can be done about it. So I went down to the building department thinking I would just waltz right in and talk to someone and they would say, okay. And when I walked in, they said, sir, you have to make an appointment, and it's a phone appointment and they're 3 weeks out right now. And I'm like, we're contracted. We don't have 3 weeks. What are we going to do? And I was like, I need to talk to someone right now.
Now, real quick, let me pause you.
Yeah, go for it.
What's funny about this is when we originally contracted this property, there was no explanation about any funny business. It was 30-day close.
Right.
30-day close. Okay.
Plenty of time.
Right, plenty of time. And then all of a sudden it was, there's a couple of fines. You need to go down. There's a permit that needs to be pulled.
Lien on the property from the building department.
Now, how do you pull a permit for a property that you have zero rights to?
Exactly. And how do you get information on it even furthermore? They owe you, there's no disclosure for that. It's not my business, right?
So you're going to go down to the building official and say, hey, I need to pull a permit on this property.
And they're going to say,
are you the owner?
Sir,
No. Do you have a contract to be a contractor? No.
Nope.
Now, for 10 years, this went on, a freaking decade. And nobody took the time to explain to these people, hey, dumbass, that can't happen. Somebody has to help us in this process. So now Elijah goes down to the building official and they say 3 weeks out. And that's unacceptable because Elijah took the time to drive down there. And if I know Elijah like I do, he was not going to leave until he talked to somebody. So what'd you do?
I was not a happy camper. So a short anecdotal story. I asked, where's the building official? I want to talk to him. I'm not leaving here without talking to someone. It's like, sir, you cannot do that. Like, listen to me. I'm going to talk to someone. It's an emergency. I need you to put me on the phone with them right now. They're like, walk over to that wall, pick up the phone, and call upstairs to the 7th floor. So I call up there. I convince the guy. He says, look, man, it's appointment only. You can't even get through the elevator. I don't know how you're going to make it up here. If you make it up here, then essentially you're going to have to wait out in the lobby and, hope for the best. And I was like, very good. So I, hung out downstairs for about 20 minutes until an official came with their little badge and swiped it on the elevator, and I just walked right in with them, went up to the 7th floor. I came out, and there was a little old man sitting out in the lobby, and he had an appointment to go meet regarding his property that he had done his due diligence and scheduled a month in advance or whatever.
Right.
So he's like, what are you doing here? I start talking to him, and strange enough, the bearded guys here, my beard enabled me to accomplish this mission. he started talking to me about, hey, how long have you had your beard? And I answered the question, and then he was like, back in my day, it was like the thing, everyone had a clean shaven face. It was not acceptable to have a beard, and it seems like nowadays everyone's got a beard. And so we struck up this conversation, and about 10 minutes later, the guy opens the door, which is behind the little key lock, and he's like, all right, Mr. Whatever your name is, it's your turn to come on inside. And he's like, hey man, I told him my story, and he's like, you go, take my spot for me. And I'm like, what, really, sir? He's like, absolutely. You're so cool, and I got plenty of time. I'm gonna die soon anyways. You got plenty of life ahead of you, young man. Go ahead and do your thing. And I was like, wow, man, thank you so much. So I snuck in and was able to sit down with the guy. He knew exactly what the property was. He pulled open the book, showed me this is what you can and cannot do. You can't have it rezoned. You can only have single family. You need to check to see if it's on septic or if it's on sewer, because that'll limit how many bedrooms and bathrooms you have. This is what you need to do. You got to pull an as-is permit in order to get it done, and release the lien from the building department, and then they will reduce the fines to 10% of the original dollar amount. And so they were willing to take it down from $270,000 to $27,000 with some other penalties and fees. It ended up being about $35,000 that we would have to pay to release the lien on the property.
So now at this point in time, that's a pretty epic meeting, right? We
were excited for sure.
I mean, now we know exactly what we need to do. We talked to the person who's telling us how we can get the permit in our name, everything that we need to do, and we just dropped the fines by 90%. We call our realtor, who is now not only the listing agent on this, but he's also representing us. And he's been on this deal for, well, now at this point in time, close to 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
And he was so excited, he was like, I will cover the fines because you got to drop so much, and this is going to get I will cover it out of my portion. So that's a pretty epic deal across the board for us, where we went from really purchasing at $900,000, and when in our mind at the time was not going to be feasible, because we were only estimating the after repair value was going to be somewhere around 1.5, 1.6 million. The fines just pretty much killed it. So now we're back on pace where we think this could be a good deal. Not going to go into too much detail about the rehab, because the rehab is really out of this world. At this point in time, we basically set it at $400,000. But we had to go through the actual permitting process, getting plans drafted. Kind of real quickly, briefly touch on how did you do that, and how long of a process is that taking us to get the permit approved and the two lien holders to set a closing date?
Short story is we had to get an engineer, an architect, a draftsman, all to go out there and do their stuff, draw it up. Then the city and county has a lack of plan reviewers in Honolulu, so it takes on average between 6 to 8 months to get a permit once you apply, just for them to review it. And that's the first review. If they find something in there that they have to kick back to you, you got to go re-up again. So they've created expediters, or plan review expediters outside the city. There's a few approved people that you can send your plans to. So what we did is we drew up what we wanted, and that was kind of difficult because we had to determine, are we going to change the plans now and make the permit based on what we want it to be after we're done, or do we want to just go with the as is as we were told? So the easiest thing to do was to get the seller to sign the documentation that she had already put in. So we were able to pull the as-is permit, put it through plan review expediter, which took us overall about 6 months to get an approved permit back, which just came back what was it, a month ago probably?
Yep.
6 weeks ago maybe. They called and said the permit's at the building department, it's ready to rock and roll. So in that time frame, my wife just randomly texted me one day and she's like, hey honey, look at this house down the street. And I look at it and it's like almost the same specs as our house on the same street. It's been rehabbed very cheesily, might I add.
Right.
But similar square footage, bedrooms and bathrooms, and it was on the market for $2.1 million. So we got really excited and we were like, oh my gosh, this is a lot more than we thought it would be. So our appraisal came back at what
we're at 2.1
million.
Yeah. So we actually started proceeding once we got the permit approved. We thought, okay, we're ready to close. So we reached out to our lenders. We got an appraisal done on it, came back at 2.1 million.
Because I met them out there again, painted the picture.
Right. So we basically used the comp on the same street that he's talking about that was on the market. We showed the difference between the work that we do and the work that we're going to do on this property. We use specific examples of material choices that we're going to have, which is very important to explain that to an appraiser. And we got an after repair value now of 2.1 million, which is, $500,000-$600,000 more than what we anticipated.
We also got a reduced purchase price based on some negotiations with the first and second lender from Brad.
Right.
So we got it down to, what is it now, 875? 875. Yeah.
So this has been going on for well over 2 years. So there's been a lot of back and forth negotiations. So we actually got this reduced by 25,000, which over time we've actually increased our rehab because we're now more experienced on the island. And we understand the labor and different materials that we can use, and we are more precise. So originally we thought this was going to be 350. We're now up to 400,000. Also with having the additional equity at the 2.1 compared to 1.6, it's only fair to put a little bit more love into the property. So we're actually going to keep this as a long-term buy and hold, like Elijah said. And gross rents on this should be roughly $20,000 a month. So we're going to be all in at 1.3 million. We will refinance with a traditional lender there and hold it for as long as we want. It's going to be a place for Elijah to live, a place for me to stay when I go out there, and our office is right around the corner. So those are our 2 case studies that we have for Hawaii. I'd love for you guys to shoot some questions. Let's hear them. It's not often you get to talk to someone who's flipping properties in the most remote location in the planet. I know he's brought some great content today, so we'd love to have some questions. Also, remember that we have a couple of free gifts that we're going to be giving away here shortly. And if you guys keep watching long enough for us to actually make shirts, we're going to have Titanium Tuesday shirts made as long as Ryan Harper does not fire me from this position. But we're going to be here every Tuesday at 1 o'clock. We're going to be live on Facebook, live on YouTube, and then when I get done with this, of course, you'll see me share it through all of the Facebook groups until you're completely annoyed with me and I go into Facebook jail. So, all right, guys, let's throw up some questions for Mr. DeLaGarza here. RJ, who do you think is the best business coach for real estate investors? Well, Gary, that's a hard question to answer, man. I've got a lot of friends in this industry that I think are great educators. I think what Propelio Academy is doing is a game changer. I think it's incredible what they're doing because it's not so much about being an educator or a coach. It's about real life real estate investors coming in here and using their experience to educate other people. And to be honest with you, there's not much that can beat that because it's not so much about being flashy or being a great
salesperson.
Yeah, salesperson. I mean, it's really just about how well you can communicate the different concepts and the strategies and really narrowing down the flashiness of this business down to the nuts and bolts. So outside that, I mean, y'all know I love Mike Hambright. I think he's a great educator. He does a lot of free events as well. He does have paid coaching, which I don't think is bad because he's a great mentor and he's not one of these flashy travel salesmen. Gary Harper is great as far as EOS implementation for strategy and systems in your business. And there's a couple other guys out there, Todd Fleming and Jordan Stanley Payne. They have the Kingdom. I'm good friends with those guys. I've never been a part of their program, but from what I could tell, they're great guys. And I'm good friends with John Brown, who's sitting behind the cameras here. He came in from Washington State. We're going to be doing business in Ohio together, and he comes from the Kingdom, and he has nothing but great things to be said about that. So those are a couple of guys that I have. Teresa, how much money did you put down on the hard money loan? All right, so on Kapui, we got 90% of the purchase and 100% of the rehab. So on that one, our purchase price was $192,000, so roughly $20,000 is what we had to put down, and then we had our 2% origination. But we also needed money to start the rehab, and we also needed to take some money for the 4 months of holding costs because we truly want to be in on these deals for none of our own money. We always want to use other people's money. So on that one, I think we roughly borrowed somewhere between 40 to 50,000. I don't remember the exact number, but I would, if I just had to guess off the top of my head, it'd be 45,000. That sound right?
Yep.
All right, guys. Any other questions we have for us? Do we need to give away free stuff so we can get some more people? I need likes and shares as well. Ryan said if I don't get good ratings on here, he's going to fire me.
No one's firing you. I'll make
No one's
sure
firing?
that. No.
Because of the
fired.
beards?
Yes. No firings allowed.
What's funny, guys, is y'all might think we have amazing beards, but we actually have someone here that has a bigger beard than both of us.
Bring him on.
I think we should bring John Brown on just so people can see his famous beard. Come on, John, come up here so people can. It's going to be small, medium, large right here, guys. Here it comes. Look at that beard. Oh, my goodness. That thing is beastly right there.
Beast mode.
All right, so we have are those the actual winners, Travion? No? They are? T-shirt winner. We're giving away a T-shirt. We're giving away a T-shirt?
Our new t-shirt.
You're gonna make T-shirts.
The new T-shirt that we haven't even made yet, Sonia Ray is the first official person that she's gonna have a T-shirt.
She gets it before it's even out.
Yeah, you don't even know what it looks like, Sonia, but you're getting one.
Exclusive.
Our new logo.
It's gonna be the new Titanium Tuesdays on Propelio TV T-shirt, and the book winners, my good friend, Baby Beard, Brandon Richards. He wins one. Brandon, I'm gonna send you some beard oil too, so you can grow a real beard.
Oh, man.
Jeez.
Shots fired. Not across the bow, directly to the stern.
I love Brandon. Oh, technically, it's actually showing the winners right there. Technically, Cassie just won something, but she's a part of Titanium, so you don't win.
You're disqualified.
Brandon
Cassie.
Richards just won again, but too bad, Bubba. That's not how it works. Jeremy Miller won something.
Jesus.
Jeremy Miller, you won a book as well.
How many T-shirts do you want to give away?
Let's give away, if we're giving away 3 books, let's give away 3 T-shirts. So we
You should
got
give a one away that I come up with a saying to put on it, and you don't know what it is, but you have to wear it.
Lindsay Richardson won a book.
Oh, cheater,
Cheater,
pumpkin
cheater.
eater.
Lindsay, you don't win anything.
It's hard. It's hard to get random.
Lindsay, stop watching your boss talk and go to work.
Seriously.
Unless we told you to do this. This is not random. I just want you to know. Apparently, nobody watched except for Cassie.
Angelica Taylor Boyd, she wins something
Angelica Taylor Boyd, you won a book.
instead of this one.
Yeah. All right, so
All right.
you guys, y'all need to message Propelio and let them know.
Say the next 2 people that says they want T-shirts will get a T-shirt.
There you go. The next 2 people that I see, I'm picking them, so hurry up.
I want a
Work for
T-shirt.
us.
I want a T-shirt. Hashtag don't fire RJ. Also, ask questions, guys. I would love to answer some more questions. Like I said, this is very rare that you have a gentleman from Hawaii here that can answer questions.
Jeremy Miller wins it.
Kyle Garner and Roy Rocha.
Roca.
Roca.
Boom, yeah, Roy, Rocha, and Kyle. Boom.
Roy and Kyle.
I like those. Those, not those.
I said the first ones I see. Taking your one. I can do that
All right, man.
because I'm sitting in Ryan's seat.
They have to watch next week.
Yeah. Plug next week. Plug tomorrow's Great Teach something. Plug the Tuesday event next Tuesday, October 9th.
Yes.
Wear a costume.
So the best REI meetup ever, October 9th. We're going to have Jason McDougall be the MC, and a bunch of us are going to get up there and tell real estate investing horror stories. Mine includes a murder, so it kind of is a lot of craziness in this world. And I think how many people are going to be up there giving? Like 20?
Yeah, like 20.
20 guys are going to get up there, guys and gals, and We have like 2 to 3 minutes to tell our little horror stories. Also, Propelio Academy is now live in beta, which is awesome. Tomorrow, Propelio TV, we have Grant Teach Me Something, which is amazing. He's always going to be on Wednesdays at what time?
11 a.m.
11 a.m. And then, like I said, Titanium Tuesdays. We're going to be here every Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Next week, we're going to have Money McDougal, Jason McDougal. He's going to come in here, and I'm just going to tell you guys, he is so excited to tell this story. He has texted me every day and said, you cannot believe what I have in store for you guys next week. So tune in next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And that's all we got for you guys today. So that's it, right, guys? That's all we got today. I'm going to throw it to the outro now. I was much better with the commercials.